They say that sometimes the right choice feels like the wrong one. On a cold Tuesday morning, at exactly 7:42 a.m., a man stood at a crossroads between his future and his conscience. His name was Samuel Carter, and he had no idea that the next 3 minutes would change everything. He was walking to a job interview that could save his family from financial ruin. But then he saw her. A woman collapsed on a public bench, gasping for air, clutching her chest, completely alone. And in that single moment, Samuel had to choose. Would he save his future, or would he save her life? What he didn't know was that the woman dying on that bench was the very person who held his future in her hands. The CEO of the company he was about to interview at. But before we get to that, you need to understand why this moment mattered so much. Who was the mysterious woman on the bench? Why was a powerful CEO sitting alone with no security, no assistance, no driver? And why would helping her cost Samuel everything before giving him far more than he ever imagined? What truth was she hiding? And what secret did she discover about him long before he ever learned her name? Stay with this story till the end, because nothing is what it seems. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Samuel Carter wasn't born into privilege. He grew up in a small neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, where people looked out for each other because no one else would. His father had been a mechanic, a quiet man who taught Samuel that integrity was worth more than money. His mother worked double shifts at a nursing home, always putting others before herself. They didn't have much, but they had character. And Samuel inherited that. By the time he was 42, Samuel had worked nearly 2 decades at a manufacturing plant. It was hard labor, long hours, and barely enough pay to keep the lights on. But it was honest work. Then the plant shut down. Just like that. No warning. No severance. Just a letter taped to the door saying operations would cease immediately. For 8 long months, Samuel searched for work. He sent out resumes, knocked on doors, called old contacts. He sold his car to pay rent. He skipped meals so his 12-year-old daughter, Grace, wouldn't have to. He watched his savings disappear and his pride crumble, but he never stopped trying. Grace was the reason he kept going. She was his world. Smart, kind, full of dreams. She wanted to be a doctor someday. Samuel would lie awake at night thinking about how he was failing her. Every unpaid bill, every missed opportunity, every worried glance from his daughter. He felt like he was drowning. His ex-wife had remarried and moved to another state. She helped when she could, but she had her own life now. Samuel never blamed her. He just knew that Grace depended on him, and he was barely holding it together. Then came the email from Brightcore Technologies. It was a large, well-respected logistics company that managed supply chains across the country. They were hiring operations coordinators, people who could manage teams and keep things running smoothly. Samuel had the experience. He'd been leading crews for years at the plant. This was his chance. After 2 phone screenings and a video interview, they invited him for a final in-person meeting. This was it. The last step. Samuel felt hope for the first time in months. He ironed his only suit, the one he'd worn to his father's funeral 3 years earlier. He wrote down possible interview questions on index cards and practiced his answers in the mirror. He prayed that night, something he hadn't done in a while. He asked for strength, for clarity, for a second chance. This job wasn't just an opportunity. It was survival. It was Grace's future. It was proof that he hadn't given up. That Tuesday morning, Samuel woke up at 5:30. He couldn't sleep. His stomach was in knots. He made coffee, reviewed his notes, and checked his watch every few minutes. The interview was at 8:15. The bus ride took 25 minutes. If he caught the 7:45 bus, he'd arrive with 15 minutes to spare. Plenty of time. He kissed Grace goodbye while she was still half asleep. She mumbled something about good luck. He smiled, grabbed his folder with his resume, and stepped out into the cold morning air. The streets were quiet. A few people hurried past, heads down, lost in their own worlds. Samuel walked briskly, his breath visible in the chill. He rehearsed his answers in his head. Why do you want to work here? What are your strengths? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? He checked his watch again. 7:42. 3 minutes to the bus stop. He picked up his pace. Then he saw her. A woman slumped on a wooden bench near the corner. Her head was tilted back, her mouth slightly open, her face pale and damp with sweat. One hand was pressed against her chest. The other dangled limply at her side. She looked like she was in her mid-50s, dressed in a simple coat and slacks. No purse. No phone visible. Samuel slowed down. People were walking past her. Some glanced, but no one stopped. A jogger ran by without breaking stride. A man on his phone walked right past, barely noticing. Samuel's heart pounded. He looked ahead at the bus stop, just half a block away. He could see a few people waiting there. Then he looked back at the woman. Her chest was rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. He whispered to himself, "Lord, what do I do?" For a moment he froze. His mind raced. The interview, Grace, the bills, the future, everything he'd worked for. But then he thought about his mother, the way she'd cared for strangers at the nursing home. He thought about his father, who once stopped to help a family change a tire in the rain and came home soaking wet but smiling. Samuel knew what they would do. He ran to her. He dropped to one knee beside the bench and gently touched her shoulder. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Are you okay?" She didn't respond. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused, then closed again. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Samuel pulled out his phone and dialed 911. His hands were shaking. The operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? Samuel's voice was steady but urgent. There's a woman here. She's not responding. She's breathing but barely. I think she's having a heart attack. The operator asked for the location. Samuel gave the cross streets, described the woman, answered every question. Stay with her. Keep her warm. An ambulance is on the way. Samuel took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. He held her hand and kept talking to her, even though she couldn't respond. You're going to be okay. Help is coming. Just hang on. Across the street, the bus arrived. Samuel heard the hiss of the brakes, the familiar rumble of the engine. He turned his head and saw it. The 7:45, his only chance. The doors opened. A few people stepped on. Samuel looked down at the woman. Her breathing was getting worse. He didn't move. The bus doors closed. The engine revved, and the bus drove away. Samuel watched it disappear down the street, taking his interview, his job, his hope with it. But he didn't let go of the woman's hand. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. Paramedics rushed over with a stretcher and equipment. They checked her vitals, asked Samuel what happened, and quickly loaded her into the ambulance. One of the paramedics, a young man with kind eyes, paused before closing the doors. You saved her life today. If she'd been alone much longer, she wouldn't have made it. Samuel nodded, but the weight of what he'd just done was starting to hit him. He stood there on the sidewalk, watching the ambulance speed away, sirens wailing. Then he checked the time. 8:03. The interview started in 12 minutes. There was no way he could make it, but he had to try. He ran. He ran as fast as his legs would carry him, his dress shoes slapping against the pavement, his tie flapping over his shoulder. His lungs burned, his chest ached, but he didn't stop. He reached the Bright Core building at 8:37. 37 minutes late. He burst through the lobby doors, sweating, breathless, his shirt untucked. The receptionist looked up, startled. Samuel approached the desk, trying to catch his breath. I'm here for an interview. Samuel Carter. I know I'm late, but I can explain. There was an emergency. The receptionist checked her computer, then looked at him with a sympathetic frown. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. The hiring team already left. They waited until 8:30, but they had another meeting scheduled. Samuel's heart sank. He felt his knees weaken. Is there any way I can reschedule? Please. This job means everything to me. She shook her head gently. They were very clear. This was the final round. I'm really sorry. Samuel stood there for a moment, staring at the floor. All those months of searching, all that hope, gone. He nodded slowly, thanked her quietly, and walked out. The walk home took over an hour. He didn't have money for another bus ticket. Every step felt heavier than the last. He replayed the morning in his head. Should he have left the woman? Should he have called 911 and then kept walking? What kind of person did that make him? But deep down, he knew he couldn't have lived with himself if he'd walked away. When he finally reached his apartment, Grace was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. She looked up when he walked in. "Dad? You're back already? How did it go?" Samuel tried to smile, but his face betrayed him. He told her everything. The woman on the bench, the ambulance, the missed bus, the interview he'd lost. Grace didn't say anything at first. Then she stood up, walked over, and hugged him tightly. She was almost as tall as him now, he realized. "When did that happen?" "Dad," she whispered. "You did the right thing." Samuel's eyes burned with tears, but he didn't let them fall. "I know, sweetheart, but the right thing doesn't always pay the bills." That night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He thought about the woman. He wondered if she was okay. He wondered if she had family, if anyone even knew what happened to her. He wondered if his sacrifice mattered at all. The next day, Samuel went back to applying for jobs. He sent out more resumes. He made more calls. He tried to push the incident out of his mind. But every time he walked past that bench on his way to the store or the library, he thought about her. 2 days later, on Thursday afternoon, Samuel heard a knock on his apartment door. It was an unusual knock, firm and deliberate. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, he froze. Standing in the narrow hallway were 3 people. The woman from the bench was in the center. But she looked completely different. She was standing tall, dressed in a sharp business suit, her hair styled perfectly, her posture confident. Flanking her were 2 younger people, a man and a woman, both holding tablets and looking very professional. Samuel's mouth opened, but no words came out. The woman smiled gently, and there was warmth in her eyes. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I've been looking for you." Samuel blinked, trying to process what he was seeing. "You're okay," he finally managed to say. "I'm okay because of you," she replied. She extended her hand. "My name is Olivia Warren. I'm the CEO of Bright Core Technologies." Samuel felt the floor tilt beneath him. He gripped the doorframe to steady himself. "You're what?" Olivia nodded. "I was on my way to a private meeting that morning. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I wanted some time alone to think before the day started. I have a history of heart issues, but I thought I was managing them. I was wrong. If you hadn't stopped, I wouldn't be standing here right now." Samuel's mind was racing. The woman he saved was the CEO. The CEO of the company he was supposed to interview at. The company he'd missed his interview with because he stopped to save her. It was too much. Olivia continued, her expression serious now. "When I woke up in the hospital, I asked the paramedics what happened. They told me a man had found me and called for help. They didn't know your name, but they described you. I had my team check the security footage from nearby buildings. We tracked you down." She paused, and her voice softened. "And when I looked at our interview schedule for that morning, I saw your name, Samuel Carter. Final interview at 8:15. You were supposed to meet with me." Samuel felt a lump in his throat. "I tried to make it. I ran all the way there, but I was too late." Olivia's eyes glistened. "You missed your interview because you were saving my life. Do you understand what that means? You gave up your future for a stranger. Most people wouldn't have stopped, but you did." Samuel didn't know what to say. He felt embarrassed, overwhelmed, confused. "I just did what anyone should do," he said quietly. Olivia shook her head. "No, most people don't. I've spent 30 years in business, Mr. Carter. I've met thousands of people. I've seen ambition, greed, talent, intelligence. But character? True character? That's rare." She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She handed it to Samuel. "This is a job offer. It's for the position you interviewed for. But I'm also offering you something else. A place in a leadership development program. I want people like you in my company. People who choose compassion over convenience. Samuel opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a formal offer letter. The salary was more than he'd made at the plant. There were benefits, health insurance, retirement matching. It was everything he needed. He looked up at Olivia, his eyes wet. I don't know what to say. She smiled. Say yes, and then show up on Monday ready to work. Before she left, Olivia turned back one more time. Mr. Carter, the world measures success in titles, salaries, and promotions. But I measure it differently. You reminded me why I started this company. To build something that values people. Thank you for that. After they left, Samuel closed the door and stood in his small living room, holding the letter. Grace came out of her room curious. Dad? Who was that? Samuel handed her the letter. She read it, her eyes growing wider with each line. Then she looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. You did it, Dad. He hugged her tightly. No, sweetheart. We did it. Samuel started work at Brightcore Technologies the following Monday. Walking into that building felt surreal. The same lobby, the same receptionist, but this time he belonged there. Olivia personally introduced him to his team. She told them the story of how they met, and people looked at him with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Over the weeks and months that followed, Samuel proved himself. He was a natural leader. He listened, solved problems, treated people with respect. His team trusted him because he genuinely cared. Olivia checked in on him regularly, not as a boss, but as someone who saw him as more than an employee. She saw him as a reminder of what mattered. 6 months later, during a company-wide meeting, Olivia stood at the podium and addressed the room. We often look for talent when we hire. Skills, experience, credentials, and those things matter. But character, true character, is what builds a company. It's what creates trust. It's what makes people want to show up and give their best. She looked directly at Samuel, who was sitting in the audience. One of our team members reminded me of that. He reminded me that kindness isn't weakness, that integrity isn't optional, and that sometimes the people we overlook are exactly the people we need. Samuel felt his face flush, but he also felt something else. Pride. Not the arrogant kind, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you stayed true to yourself. Grace was thriving. Her grades were better than ever. She talked about college with excitement now, not fear. Samuel had enrolled her in a summer science program, something that would have been impossible a year ago. He watched her grow more confident, more hopeful, and it filled him with a joy he couldn't describe. Every morning, Samuel took the same bus to work. And every morning he passed that bench. Sometimes he would pause for a moment, remembering that cold Tuesday when everything changed. He never told people the full story unless they asked. He didn't need the attention. He simply worked hard, treated people well, and lived with the same integrity his parents had taught him. Olivia and Samuel developed a friendship built on mutual respect. She once told him over coffee, "You know, people ask me all the time what the secret to success is. And I tell them it's not a secret at all. It's showing up every day and choosing to do the right thing, even when it costs you something." Samuel smiled. "It almost cost me everything." Olivia shook her head. "No, he gave you everything. You just didn't know it yet." And she was right. Samuel had gained more than a job. He'd gained a sense of purpose. He'd proven to himself and to his daughter that kindness wasn't foolish. That sacrifice wasn't weakness. That doing the right thing, even when no one is watching, even when it hurts, is what defines us. He'd learned that destiny isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create with every choice you make. And on that cold Tuesday morning, Samuel Carter made a choice that changed 2 lives forever. So let me ask you something. If you were in Samuel's position, what would you have done? If you had 10 minutes to get to the most important interview of your life, and you saw someone in desperate need, would you stop? Or would you keep walking, telling yourself that someone else would help? It's easy to say we do the right thing. But in that moment, when everything is on the line, when your family's future depends on it, the choice becomes much harder. Samuel didn't know the woman was a CEO. He didn't know he'd be rewarded. He just knew someone needed help, and he couldn't walk away. That's character. That's courage. And that's what this story is really about. It's not about luck or fate. It's about who we choose to be when no one is watching, when there's no guarantee of a happy ending. So tell me in the comments, would you choose kindness, even if it cost you everything? Have you ever sacrificed something important to help a stranger? Share your story. I'd love to hear it. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of what truly matters, then do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss stories like this. Stories that remind us that goodness still exists, that people still care, that one act of compassion can change everything. Because at the end of the day, we're all just walking past benches. And the question is, will we stop, or will we keep walking? Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.